You're watching the PBS Newshour. I'm Hari Srinivasan. We are having a series of conversations about immigration. Today we are joined by Reverend Samuel Rodriguez, president of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference. That is America's largest Hispanic Christian organization with more than 40,000 member churches. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're in these conversations. We're taking a look at how the immigration debate has changed. And specifically for you, I have to ask, what is the role of faith in this?
I think the role of faith speaks to the radical transformation from 2013. In 2006, right after James Sensenbrenner's initial legislative piece that basically triggered the current immigration reform crisis, the faith community was in the tailwind. In other words, the faith community was not necessarily engaged. Anything that emerged as a firewall against Sensenbrenner and subsequently Tom Tancredo, the laws proposed to deport 11, 12 million people, in my opinion, the draconian sort of laws basically polarize the Latino community and the immigrant community for that matter. The faith community was in the tail end of the conversation. Unions, national civil rights organizations led the way, but not necessarily a faith moral imperative. The majority of people viewed immigration as a political thing, a political issue. The change is 2013, faith now leads the way. The individuals, the groups, the constituencies that once viewed immigration as a political issue, today view it as a moral issue, as a faith issue, as a spiritual issue. The best way I can communicate it is using a metaphor. In 2006, it was horizontal. In 2013, it's a vertical issue. So the faith community has successfully contextualized the moral imperative behind immigration reform.
So how do you think that churches have gotten more involved in this conversation now than perhaps they were in 2006? And how do you measure that effectiveness?
The churches in 2006, again, were in the margins. As a matter of fact, the surveys from 2006, 2007, and 2008 demonstrated that the majority of people in the pews, and even including leadership, stood opposed to comprehensive immigration reform. How about that? Because they viewed immigration reform via the lenses of a political ideology. They suffered from spiritual and cultural myopia. And they saw immigration reform as an extension of one political platform or the other. Today, it's a different world. We pushed forward. We advanced what I call not the agenda of the donkey or the agenda of the elephant. We advanced what we call the agenda of the lamb. We helped, and not only myself, but a number of other key Christian organizations and leaders, we helped frame the optics of immigration reform, understanding the plight, understanding the moral imperative. Matthew 25, the mandate of Jesus. Hey, how do you take care of me? How do you feed me and quench my thirst and welcome me when you welcome the stranger? We pushed Matthew 25, the Good Samaritan parable. We spoke to pastors across the countries. We targeted the 24 largest cities in America, met with white evangelical pastors, African-American pastors, sat down with them and said, this is not a political issue. It is a moral issue. In the matter of fact, the future of American Christianity may very well be at stake here. These immigrants are filling up our churches. Our churches are filled with undocumented individuals. And deporting 11, 12 million people, we may very well be deporting the future of American Christianity. So when we framed it via the survival of American Christianity, it helped pastors say, hold on a second, let's take another look. And then subsequently, the people in the pews took another look. And today, in 2013, we have the vast majority of pastors and leaders committed to immigration reform. And the recent survey, the majority of people in the pews, even of churches that support very conservative candidates, now support comprehensive immigration reform.
So I know you're a man of faith and you're probably more optimistic than the rest of us, but are you optimistic that this round of legislation will be more productive?
I would best frame it as a sense of uber optimism with an inner lining of prayerful caution. Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm 99.9% convinced it will happen this go around. Listening to President Obama in the Roosevelt Room a few weeks ago, speaking to a small gathering of leaders, faith leaders, and I was one of them. Hearing his commitment, speaking to members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, speaking to Marco Rubio, speaking to Robert Goodlatte, speaking to key Republican leaders that once opposed immigration reform, all the lines, all the stars have definitely lined up. It's just a matter of whether or not we have the political will now as a nation to push this forward. The majority of Americans support comprehensive immigration reform. The majority of Republicans support comprehensive immigration reform. The majority of Democrats support comprehensive immigration reform. If the entire nation is united on this issue, there's no reason whatsoever why we shouldn't pass immigration reform this year. As we know, next year's midterm elections. As a result of that, it's going to be very difficult to pass a controversial issue next year. And then 2015 begins a de facto 2016 presidential campaign. So
Sure.
if it doesn't happen this year, it's not going to happen. So we must pass comprehensive immigration reform in 2013.
All right. Reverend Sam Rodriguez from the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching this series of conversations on immigration at the PBS NewsHour. I'm Hari Srinivasan.